Internet, welcome to Tasty Techniques. I'm Jonathan, and if you've followed my videos before, you may realize I'm not in my kitchen. I'm on vacation seeing my parents. I'm in their kitchen, and I'm going to make one of the most iconic breakfast foods ever, bagels. Now my family's from New York, bagels are very important, and down here in Florida, we don't really get good bagels. So hang with me for the next couple of minutes as we make these bagels. I got family in the house, so you may see some cameos, there may be some background noise. We'll make it work, let's have some fun. Alright, so bagels being a bread item, first item that we're going to need is bread flour. It's got a high gluten content and it's perfect for making breads and bagels. Next we'll need some active dry yeast. I'll get all the measurements here in a minute when we put it into the mixer, but right now we need the yeast. Next you'll need some kosher salt. And I highly recommend using kosher salt, as I always do. Don't use table salt for this because it'll throw off the measurements. Next, barley malt syrup. This is kind of a specialty item. If you can find it, I highly recommend using it. It gives an earthiness to the bagels. Otherwise, you can just use molasses. Next, you'll need the egg of one chicken. And actually, we're just going to use the whites. We're not going to use the yolk, and that's not even going to come into play until a little bit later. You're also going to need about 1.5 cups of water, warmed slightly, somewhere between 105 and maybe 115 degrees. You don't want it too much higher than that because you'll kill the yeast. Now it's time to get going. Okay, enough talk about ingredients. We're going to actually start doing stuff, because why not? So first thing I'm going to do is I've got my warm water here. I'm going to pour it into a bowl, and then I'm going to add in 2¼ teaspoons of my active dry yeast. This is going to start up the yeast and get it kind of moving and shaking and kind of wake it up a little bit so that our bagels are going to have some action. So I'm just going to sprinkle this right in. 2¼ I'm just going to eyeball the quarter. I'm going to stir the yeast in, and then we're going to start adding stuff to the mixer. Okay, so first thing in the bowl, I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Now I like putting the salt in the bottom because salt will slow the growth of yeast, and I don't want the yeast to touch it directly right off the bat. So in go 2 teaspoons of salt. Next in the bowl, I'm going to dump in on top 4 cups of bread flour. Now with most other baking, I prefer to weigh the flour, but this one, using volume, is just fine. Alright, I got my salt and the flour in the bowl. The next ingredient I'm going to add, I actually forgot to tell you about in the beginning, but I got some regular old white granulated sugar. I'm going to add 4 teaspoons. Now there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, so technically it's a tablespoon and 1/3, but 4 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, and 4. With the sugar in, it's now time to add 2 tablespoons of that malt syrup. And again, if you don't have the malt syrup, use regular old molasses. You probably have some buried somewhere in your pantry. If you don't, use honey. It's fine. If you don't have that, you need a new pantry, or just leave it out altogether. Your bagels won't be as good, but they'll be pretty good. This stuff is super gooey, so just go slow. There's 1. Ooh. It's actually thicker than molasses, if that's even possible. Okay, with that in, very messy, I'm going to go ahead and add in the yeast mixture on top of that, carefully. Alright, and if there's anything left in the bowl, you can scrape that in, but now it's time to actually use the mixer. Alright, so I got everything in the bowl of the mixer here. I got the dough hook attachment on the mixer, very important. So I'm going to go ahead and close it down, lock it in. I'm going to put this on low. And this is just going to stir it for a couple minutes till everything kind of incorporates, and then we're going to kick up the speed to about medium for about 8 or 9 minutes. I'll show you when that time happens. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can definitely do this by hand. You will get an amazing upper body workout and you'll sleep really good that night. But I'm going to let this do the work for me because I'm on vacation. So I'll bring you in when this starts to come together. Okay, so I had the mixer going for about 2 minutes already, and I'm going to lift up the hook here. It's just a little gooey. There's still some stuff around the edges, And there's some shreddedness, like shredded, almost looks like shredded wheat around the edge. I'm going to get a bowl scraper and scrape that down and incorporate it all. And then I'm going to lower this back down, put it on about a medium speed for about 8 or 9 minutes. The dough is going to come together and look really soft and kind of stretchy. And again, I'll show you that, of course, when the time comes. But I'm going to go ahead and get this going so we can get the process moving along. Alright guys, so my dough is done mixing. It took a little bit longer than I expected it to, but that's because it's really humid here in Florida and I had to add a lot more flour. Don't be afraid to do this if you have to. Based on what your dough looks like, you want it to come together in a big homogeneous mixture, and it's got to be dry. So if you touch it, you don't want a lot of it sticking to your fingers, if any. So now we're going to move into the slightly rising phase. So I've got a bowl here. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to it, splash it around, and then I'm going to put the dough in there, and we're just going to cover it and let it go for about probably 20 or 30 minutes. Alright, so a little bit of oil. Don't need much. I'm just going to get my hand in there and just kind of splash it around the bottom, the sides, everything like this. Okay, and I've got my big dough ball here. Just going to get it out of the bottom. Alright, so you can see it's dry, it's stretchy, so that's a little wet still. So I'm going to kind of just roll this into a ball, put it in the bowl here, kind of just move it all around. Alright, so it's lightly coated. Alright, that's nice. Nice and smooth now in a bowl right here. I'm going to cover this with a damp towel, and then I'm going to come back in about 20 or 30 minutes after it's been resting in a slightly warmed area. It should puff up, but not double in size. I have a nice soundtrack going on right now, but my dough has been resting for about 30 minutes, and it's time to pull it out, and we're going to roll it out. To get ready for that, I've got a baking sheet here with a piece of parchment. Got some vegetable oil. I'm going to put that on top of the parchment and kind of smooth it around. I've got a spatula here that I'm going to use to cut my dough. If you have like a bench scraper or even a knife, that'd be fine too. And I've got some water standing by. I'll show you more on that in a little bit. So it's time to get rolling. Alright, so I've got the oil on my baking sheet over here. I got the dough. It is risen a little bit. It's nice and puffy and soft, and it's very nice. Got a little bit of oil on my hands. So I'm just going to kind of roll this out into a little bit of a log, and then we're going to cut it into equal pieces. This recipe should get you about 12 bagels or so you want to get as even to 12 pieces as you can. So I'm just going to roll it out, and then using my spatula here, since I don't have my bench scraper, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. If you had a scale, you could scale it out. I don't have one with me right now. That's totally okay. So there's 2. Okay, so I'm here in the kitchen. I've got my 12 pieces of bagel underneath a damp towel. And there's 2 real methods to getting the bagel shape and the hole in the middle and everything. So I'm going to show you both of them right now, and then I'll finish them so I can get to baking. So the first one, I'm going to pull back. Alright, first one is going to be the rolling method. So I've got the dough here, and I'm just going to kind of roll this out into, I don't know, 6-7 inches maybe. Maybe something like that. You want it as even as possible so you don't have like a hump in the middle, which can sometimes form. And then you're just going to form a bagel. I got a little bit of water here off to the side. I'm going to wet one end, and it'll help the other side of the dough stick. So look at that. 2 ends of the bagel together, and we've got our shape. So now I'm going to put this on my oiled sheet underneath the damp towel, and I'm going to grab the next piece. And then this is going to be kind of the tear method, which, you know, depends on what you want to do, but I like to kind of smooth the dough out a little bit into a nice little circle, and then you can just stick your thumb in there and just tear a hole in it. Either way you want to do it is fine by me. I don't care. It's your bagel. But so there, that's another shape as well. So I'm going to finish up these bagels and keep them underneath the damp towel for probably about 10 or 15 minutes. They're going to rise a little bit and get puffy, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, so I've got a whole assembly line process ready to go here. I've got a wide, shallow pan here filled about 3/4 of the way with boiling water, and there's some baking soda in there to change the alkalinity of the water. It'll give our bagels a nice crispy exterior. So from our wet towel here, I got the bagel. I just want to, if the hole has shrunk any because the bagels have risen, just kind of reopen it, and then we're going to take the bagel and put it into the boiling water. And I'll just do one right now, but you want to do about 3 or 4 at a time. So it's just going to bob around in here for maybe 30 seconds or so. And like I said, you can do multiples at a time just to speed up the process. And this is just going to kind of help set the exterior and lightly cook the interior. After about 30 seconds or so, we're just going to go ahead and flip this so we get the other side equally. Maybe we'll flip it. Ooh, that's hot. Alright, so another 30 seconds. And adjust your heat as you need to, just so the water continues to stay at a light simmer or a light boil. And then another 30 seconds, and we'll go ahead and take it out. And we'll move it over to a cookie sheet I have over here with a rack to kind of keep it elevated. Alright, that one's ready to go. And I'm just going to finish up the process here. And, ooh, I'm getting a facial. I'm going to finish up the process, and I'll show you how we top these things. Alright, so I've got all my bagels boiled and out on sheets. I've got 2 sheets, one's off to the side, don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and show you how we make the toppings. And I'm going to go ahead and get 2 ready for the kids, and then I'm going to go ahead and go crazy on mine. Flavor them however you want. I've got sesame seeds, caraway, salt, garlic powder. But if you wanted to go nuts, you could grate some cheese on there and have that melty deliciousness out of the oven. But I'm not going to do that today. So remember the egg I mentioned at the very beginning? I went ahead and separated it. I threw out the yolk. I don't need it. So in this cup here, I've got 1 egg white with some water, and I've beat it up a little bit. And I got a brush here. It's nice and silicone and fun. So I'm going to take the brush into the egg white mixture, and I'm just going to brush this bagel all over the top, the sides. Alright, and that's going to help create a crispy crust. It's going to help color, and then it's also going to help my topping stick. So, I got that, and I got this this gray sea salt here. You don't have to use this kind of salt. If you have just regular kosher salt, that's fine. So I'm going to top that. That bagel's done. So I'll move right along. This one over here, same thing, brushy brush. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be nice, because it's going to taste really good. So a little bit. On this one I'll go a little crazy. I'll add a little bit of the salt. Just like that. I've got sesame seeds here. Just a little bit of that. Those will toast up and really intensify in the oven. I've got some garlic powder. So we'll make a little everything bagel here. I've got onion powder. Ooh, that one's going to be really oniony. That's okay, that'll be mine. And then I've got some caraway seed here too. Don't find this a lot in Florida, but up in New York it's very common. So there. I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the rest of these guys, and we're going to toss them in the oven. Go ahead and make sure you preset yours to 425 degrees. Okay, I've spent the time to egg wash all of my bagels. I put all my toppings on. I forgot which one I put on what, but we're going to get ready to go in the oven now. So I got it set 425 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and put them in, and they're going to go in for about 15 minutes. And I'm going to take them out, rotate the pans, and then we're going to go for like another 10 or 15 minutes. We'll have to check on it at that time. So, of course, the heat wave. I got pan number 1. And pan number 2. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. Okay, it smells awesome in here. It's been 15 minutes. I spun the pans. Been an extra 10 minutes. It's time for the bagels to come out. Oh yeah. Just like home. So, we're supposed to let these sit and rest and cool down for a little bit. Good luck with that. What I'm going to do is maybe wait 4 minutes so I can touch one, and I'm going to cut it open and have some breakfast. Now, one of the great things about these is after they've cooled down a little bit, you can cut them in half, let them cool completely, put them in bags, and you can freeze them for months. So I'm going to let this cool, and I'm going to chow down in a minute. Alright, so my bagel has rested as long as I can stand it. I'm hungry. My family is especially hungry. They're all staring at me like vultures. So I'm going to go ahead and cut into this one here. Sesame seeds flying out all over the place. The exterior on this bagel is very crispy. And it's still soft because it's still very, very warm. I can't wait. The inside's very soft. Oh, it smells really good. But I got some cream cheese waiting for me in the fridge. And again, my family is very hungry, so I'm going to bid you adieu for this episode of Tasty Techniques. I do hope you try making these bagels one time. You can make a ton ahead of time and freeze them, like I said, cool them, cut them, put them in the freezer, then all you need to do is toast them up when you're ready to go. One thing I will say, an addendum to what I've done today, is when you bake them, put them on a piece of parchment paper. I was prying mine off the baking sheet that I had, so make sure you use parchment. It'll come out a lot easier. You'll have a nice crispy bottom, which beats having a soggy bottom. So thanks for viewing, and I'll catch you next time.